Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Talent One's October webinar. We are so excited about today's topic and today's speakers, and we're going to get started. Annie, next slide, please. So as some of you may know, or many of you know, I'm Swati Garg. I'm the founder and CEO of Emilia Associates. Everything I do is around impact, and it's been an incredible career so far. And I'm really excited to see what happens in the future. I'm gonna talk a little bit about Emilia Associates, and then we're gonna dive into the content. Annie, next slide, please. So what do we do? If you don't know already, we help companies hire for all revenue protection and expansion roles. So customers, everything under the CS umbrella, essentially, and really help with small and medium-sized SaaS companies. A lot of people come to us for different reasons, but mostly it's for functional and technical expertise. They need more, their teams are at capacity and they just need more support, or they really want to utilize our continued growing network. And as we all know, time is money. So people just really want to save time. And how we help. So right now we have three main services. We have our full service recruitment, where we handle everything from beginning a job description, review all the way to offer stages. And then our second main service is we do on-demand resume services. So we help internal teams go through their hundreds and thousands of resumes that they're probably dealing with right now in this market, which is why we have this webinar today. So if you need help with that, and then we also have an amazing group of seasoned executives ready for interim fractional advisory roles, if that's something that anyone wants to talk about. We are actually making some big changes and a big announcement next month. So watch out for that on our social. And now I'm going to introduce Annie and Emilia. So I've actually gotten to know both of them over the last year, meeting them at various events, being in the community together, and we've obviously been servicing similar companies and the community, and really wanted to partner together to talk about something that we're all very, very passionate about, especially in this very challenging market. So I'm so grateful and so thankful for both of them to spend an hour with us today to talk about this and all the prep they did to make sure that all of you get amazing content. So please utilize this conversation today. Think about what questions you have. We have a lot of experts here today to talk about the job market and how to continue to re-enter it in this time. So Annie and Emilia, thank you so much for being here today. And I'm going to hand it back to you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. Emilia, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I can't wait to dive into the content. Thanks for having me, Swati.
So we'll be gathered today for a few minutes on talking about reclaiming your competitive edge professionally, re-entering the job market, especially after a career of building connections, experience, and your own skills, and then finding areas you want to grow. And excuse me. And Emilia and I will be talking about a few things today. First, we're going to be talking about embracing modern tools like AI to enhance your job search. Then we'll be talking a little bit about some hot tips on how you better prepare for interviews with confidence and ease, even if you don't feel like it. And then refreshing your LinkedIn profile for maximum impact. And finally, landing on how do you stand out in today's competitive market. But before we do all that, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Annie Stefano. I'm head of education services here at Growth Molecules. We're a boutique advisory firm that helps protect and grow your company or individual revenue. And I have the pleasure of combining both my professional histories of customer service and experience, along with technology and education. So if you partner with us, you'd likely partner with me in any sort of education services and grow either individually or your team professionally. And then we have Emilia.
Thanks, Annie. Hi, everyone. I'm the founder of Growth Molecules, and I've been in customer success for a long time, in tech for 25 years, and have grown in my own career from being a customer success manager to chief customer officer and now management consultant. I've been in the shoes of many of you. And when I first graduated from college, wondering how am I going to apply a degree in humanities and Canadian studies to tech, I was a little lost and tried a bunch of different things. But fast forward to today, I've written a book. One of my case studies is published in the Case Center in London for MBA schools. And I've had a rich career working with incredible people like Annie, for example. Next slide. Annie already touched on this. We have an academy. We offer strategic advisory services where we partner with companies like Milo Associates to bring best-in-class leaders when we finish up our own work, like journey mapping assessments, for example. And then we offer tech services. We are certified with several companies and implementers of Gainsight, Churn Zero, PlanHat, and many others. Next slide. All right, why are we all here? The workforce is changing and the way people hire are changing. I'm the 9th employee at JobVite. That company, I spent almost 6 years of my career there. Started when they had very few clients. One of our first clients was LinkedIn, Zappos before Amazon bought them when they were very small. I'll never forget kicking them off, and Tony Hsieh was in the room with us. So you can imagine how small Zappos was at that time. And what I learned by working with LinkedIn for 6+ years as my client, their CSM, is that the algorithm and everything LinkedIn does is continuously changing, and the candidates they're serving to the recruiters. And so today, more than ever, if you find yourself in a place where you're looking for a job, you're not finding the jobs through your relationships, or they've been handed to you very quickly like they have in the past in your career, it's time to embrace the new job search, and AI has to be part of it. So yes, Jamie, Tony was amazing, and I'm thankful I had the opportunity to spend time with him. Every year they flew me to Vegas, so I agree. So yes, let's move on to the next slide. So modern tools, what does that mean? First, your job search and understanding. When you're thinking about your job search, what is your professional statement? Annie's going to get into a little bit more about what that means in a moment, but it's really important when I'm asking people, when they're coming to us for help, I'm asking them as a coach, well, what's your professional statement? If you could explain to me in one sentence who you are and why that matters to the company you're applying to, there's often silence. They can't do it. And so it's really important that you have that one-liner. For us, we are a management consulting firm that helps companies protect and grow revenue. That's it, one sentence. So creating a professional statement is incredibly important. For resume building and cover letters, to not leverage Canva and ChatGPT, you are missing out on the modern free AI tools that are out there. If you look at a resume that's built in Word versus Canva, it's the world of a difference. Marissa Meyer, I would argue, is one of the first people to ever create that Canva-like resume, one page, and Canva didn't even exist at the time when she created her resume, but that one page, very clear, you know who and what she does. So incredibly important. Next is cover letter and resume building support. So understanding the prompts that you can leverage with the modern technology and to make it work for you. You also want to create resumes based on different searches that you're applying, or different jobs that you're applying for. It's Milo, or Swati touched on this briefly earlier. Milo offers this service as well, but resumes matter. One of the clients we were working with They published a job that they were opening up in customer success around 9 a.m. Fast forward 6 hours later, the recruiter slacked me and said, I have 800 resumes in my inbox. I'm completely overwhelmed. So thinking about how is yours going to stand out and at the top. So really making sure that yours is customized to that role. Recruiters and the modern AI is able to detect what's generic and what's very specific. Next. Yeah, so company discovery and exploration, make sure you do your research. Just like when we're working with prospects who want our help, we're not going to show up and ask them questions that we can find online. It's important that you look up the person who's interviewing you, you write down intelligent questions, bring it back to show them that you've done your research. Maybe you have something in common. Maybe they live in a place you went to college, or have some other thing that you can tie back that shows that you've done your research. And then Google alerts. We have Google alerts set for our own company for different topics that are important to our industry. And of course, the word growth molecules. You can do that too for not only your own name, but for different industries and companies that you're interested in researching. Next slide. Annie, this is you. You're an expert here on AI prompts.
Oh boy. Well, I don't know if I'd say expert, but always learning and growing would be my motto. And if it helps, it's really funny. I consider myself an original transitioning teacher of 2012. I never thought I'd leave education, but I had a love of technology and client experience, and I had the opportunity to jump in. So for some of you that are joining that are looking at a complete industry transition, or just role to role and just testing different waters of your skills, I have been there, and we didn't have AI. I think sometimes it was pure luck. But looking back, if I was in that position again, to our points earlier, we all are aware AI exists and it's here, but the power behind AI is not what it's feeding you, it's what we're prompting it to feed us. So it's really important that the prompts are powerful, specific, and clear. And the more that we do that, the better it will become an even stronger supplemental tool. So some of the prompts that we offer here that could get you started would be leveraging the tips that we shared earlier. But then also, for example, if you're still figuring out what type of job you want, then maybe ask AI clearly that. Say, hey, generate 10 specific job titles I'd be a good fit for based on this criteria, right? So list out your favorite skills, list out your interests. It sounds silly, but some of those personal pieces actually matter in your purpose and how you feel fulfilled in your career, which means you'll stay longer at a company and invest yourself longer. There's a lot of research behind that we'll talk about. Say what industry type you're interested in. So for those of you staying in the industry you love, you're going to insert that information. And then you can even copy paste your existing resume. When you give the prompt, it's going to give you exactly what it's looking for based on what you're providing. So give that a shot if you're not sure, or you're curious, or even, better, sometimes roles have different titles or names based on the company's organization. So what you might be looking for, customer success manager, might actually be considered the title of an account manager at a different organization. And you don't want to miss out on an opportunity just because the name of the job is not the same. Another good prompt would be, what are 3 specific ways I can test my fit of the following roles? What you're asking ChatGPT is based off of this first prompt, my resume, my skills, my interest. Now you're saying, what are 3 ways that I can figure out if I fit in a company of these roles? And so now you're diving in deeper, more specifically about what possibilities are available. And then you can continue with, what are the specific fastest and best ways to learn skills for maybe a specific role you're really interested in, but not quite sure what else you need to stand out, right? Asking them directly, and they'll give you accreditation, credentials, skills, and then suggest some training pathways that you can then nurture for your own development to make you stand out competitively. And then actually one of my favorite that I like to coach, even for transitioning educators or those moving from industry A to B, is asking AI exactly, or chat GPT, the same thing. Generate a list of 100 top employers, or maybe you can say 10 just to keep the list small, of this job title that now I figured out I want in this industry that I know I want to work for, where my passions are, where I feel I benefit, and maybe even location if you're looking specifically to where you live, or saying, hybrid, remote, open work, and see what that list generates. Because if you're just starting in a job search, you want to be able to look wherever you are maybe not thinking about, right? And so then you can add optional conditional criteria as the prompt is building upon one another. Because again, the power is in the prompting. Then you can say, I want this to align my values of, positive work culture, um, unlimited PTO. Like, you can actually start to set the criteria. And even a suggestion could be, maybe you have developed a love for what maturity stage your companies or your past job roles have been at. So maybe even you like the startup life. I have a friend who rotates startups every 2.5 years professionally. So she loves the series A, B mindset of a company that's not necessarily large scale yet. They're still in early infancy stages, but she loves that life. And so that may be where she wants to continue, finding a role professionally. So don't be shy to build upon your AI prompts. And of course, we'll save this so you can get started after this webinar. So the second piece would be preparing for interviews and the hunts. We know this is exhausting. And again, in my search, I was let go right at the beginning of COVID. I had already transitioned outside the classroom into tech. And I had a lot of experience, but naturally in that time frame, then I had to find something else, right? And the hunt and preparing for interview is truly a testament to your time management and your project management skills that will directly correlate with how you'll produce and be efficient in your role. And so it is really important to think about how you're preparing and actually making sure to nurture yourself along the way. 95%, you are 95% more likely to achieve goals when you schedule check-ins and accountability with a mentor or partner while you're interviewing and while you're hunting. So having someone in your corner like Emilia or professionals you've worked with in the past while you're looking for a new job is really vital. And it keeps yourself accountable to what you're trying to search for. Now, in that preparation, the first thing would be taking a skills inventory. We don't do it often enough. We're often, raising children, dogs, pets, families, trying to balance our life. And so we're just thinking of the next thing. But retention is directly correlated to purpose. So the longer that you'll invest yourself in a company and they'll invest in you is also when you feel there's purpose there for you professionally and personally, you feel like you're making an impact. So taking a skills inventory sounds like you're taking some time off, but really you're doing yourself a favor. Make sure you're assessing your strengths and what you need professionally to grow and move forward in. This also means an exercise, not job related, in time management. So making sure that, looking for a job is definitely the priority if you're not without one, but make sure you're starting to schedule out, block out, really manage your time effectively. So there is a balance with you at this time. You don't want to burn out in searching for a job, because that will correlate into how you interview and how you write and talk about yourself. And you also want to make sure that you're carving out time and space before and after any job interview or searching. So you can kind of reflect on what you're looking at, maybe revise your resume. Again, treat it like you would when you're working with clients or, in your other roles that you've had. And then lastly, goal setting. Goal setting is super important. We should honestly do it ongoing all the time. But when you are during your interviews and your job hunt, it's really, truly remarkable how different your mission becomes and what job you end up receiving when you start to make long-term and short-term goals. We know the goal is to find a new job. That's what you want, right? But personally, that's too ambiguous to do. So have short-term goals of, you're going to reach out, 3 times a week to 3 jobs that you're interested in, or you're going to monthly make sure to apply to at least 20 jobs. Quarterly, you're going to have a goal of getting a job by the end of next quarter, right? it needs to happen, because when you put it on paper, then it's kind of like you're setting it and you have a mission for yourself. So you're more likely to achieve what you want if you end up doing this. So one of the things that we focus on is don't get stuck by searching for it, get clear. Take a moment to reflect on what you're good at, what you love to do, and what the world needs out of you. How can you impact the world? And the world could be your service. You know, for example, my heart is in education. When I can work with ed tech companies, I feel like I'm impacting students. That to me is my world. So where's that sweet spot where you can find and correlate a little bit from everything? That's going to end up being like your main interest. That could also be aligned with your mission and your vision, which means it could correlate to a corporation, a company, an organization that maybe you want to work for and represent. And when it comes to time, these pieces are super vital, right? Prepare for your interview, prepare for your search, use those AI tools, those prompts, really think about what you want to do and how you want to go. Try to remove stress aside from the fact, like, if you've lost your job or been laid off, that's stressful enough. So try to, take advantage of the time that you have productively so you feel good about moving forward and the end goal of getting what you want. And the biggest thing I think Amelia and I see in coaching is being open to change. You're kind of conducting this change management cycle with yourself. And we're so used to doing that with customers, changing through implementation, changing through adoption, right? Maybe even changing to expand. But when it comes to ourselves, you got to give yourself grace, but also be open to change, open to changing roles, maybe taking a step back to launch forward, changing industries and knowing you're kind of starting over. As a transitioning teacher, I went from a classroom to a boardroom. It was a huge shift. And so I really had to take a step back and kind of give myself the grace of, I don't know everything on this side of the boardroom like I did in the classroom. And so you have to be open to that, or else it's going to get even more frustrating for you. And then goal setting again, weekly, daily, and right now, what are you going to do today? And just prioritize that along with your other priorities in life. Amelia? Oh, you're muted.
All right. So this is a really important statistic, is you have to keep your social profile up to date. I predominantly coach executives at the VP level and above, and often some of them are looking for a job for the first time in their career, and they haven't touched social media in a year or two. Specifically, I'm referring to their LinkedIn. Their Instagram may have lots of pictures of their pet or their favorite workout or their children. And so now it's time to refocus on that LinkedIn element. And what that means is putting things that matter to you that will also influence and persuade others on LinkedIn. Show your knowledge. So if you read an article or you have an opinion or a process that's worked and is proven, share it with the world. Even Annie and I, we are constantly posting on LinkedIn what we're learning from our clients, obviously anonymously, or what we are recommending or what we've tried and is proven. We give away content continuously. And the reason it's important is that you need to be able to come up higher in the LinkedIn algorithm. So don't be afraid to put that you're looking for a job. Don't be afraid to share your experience looking for a job. One of the VPs I coached, he was very nervous about letting his network know that he had been struggling to find a role. And that post, he had me actually even read it before he published it. That post generated so many interviews and people reaching out and saying, I want to help you. Let's jump on a call so I can tap my own network and help you land a job because I know how great you are. And so getting the word out that you're looking for a job is important. You want to develop your brand statement on the very top of your LinkedIn profile. I cannot stress this enough. If you aren't attracting the recruiters, and Swati can speak to this even better than I can, if they don't see the top of your LinkedIn as something that is relevant to the job they're seeking to fulfill, they're not scrolling down to the rest of your amazing experience. So have a very clear statement about what you do under your photo. LinkedIn will put your profile higher to the top. If you have a backsplash image, don't know how to create one, go to Canva and type in LinkedIn backsplash. You'll find plenty of them there, and then customize them to show what your expertise is. You definitely want to make sure that when you're advocating for yourself, you do it in a humble way. So being your authentic self is important. Don't be afraid to add your accomplishments. I see people at the C level saying, I just went through Pavilion, or I just went through the university program to enhance my skills. Leaders at the top are not afraid to share that they're continuously learning and that they don't know everything. And then, of course, leverage your LinkedIn features, right? Don't be afraid that you're putting, I'm looking for a new job. I have to be remote right now at this point in my career. And these are the locations, if I do relocate, where I can move, right? So the more you optimize your LinkedIn, the better. One other thing I want to share is you really want to make sure that you're writing or asking people to give you references. And I'm going to give you a hack. Write your own recommendations. It's a humbling experience, and you will give the people who are going to give you recommendations a deadline. So write your own recommendation, put it through Grammarly, whatever, make it one paragraph, send it to someone who you've worked for in the past or with, and say, Annie, I'm seeking a job. I've started a LinkedIn recommendation for myself using your experience with me. Would you please look it over and make it your own voice and publish it by Friday? It will help me land a job faster. And be very specific about time and what you want them to say. I did this with my MBA recommendation letters. I was so frustrated. The two people I was asking for a recommendation for just were not doing it. And they told me they would, and they were so excited I was going to MBA school. I finally just wrote my own recommendation letters and asked them to make it their own voice. I don't think they even edited it. And I got into MBA school. So sometimes you have to take these matters into your own hands. Everyone's busy, but they want to help you. Make it easy for people to help you. Show up prepared. Don't ask people, hey, can you recommend me to X job? Send the link to the job and your resume and why you'd be a good fit so that they can write the recommendation for you faster. So really important. Annie, next slide. I think this is you, right?
Yes, it is. So,
Okay.
part of these pieces in Amelia's tips and tricks for LinkedIn is thinking about demonstrating your unintentional leadership. This is in part building your brand. And part of that is thinking about how are you influencing others, building your credibility, which will also build your branding. And this is something that they'll look at, right? So it's something to think about is how do you hope to influence the world? Again, this goes back also to your skills and inventory, your values, your beliefs, but now professionally, your credibility is going to develop that branding and people are going to look. It's going to be noticed, especially when you're job searching. So, an exercise you could do is while that skills assessment we mentioned earlier, like what are your strengths? What are the areas you need? Now, let's identify your core values. What means the most to you? Because we spend a lot of time at work and we're in a service career. And so we're often building relationships strategically, of course. So, let's take a look at what those are. And then, what are your strengths, which you did before? What are you passionate about? Again, this brings that personal touch to it. There may be a connection, like Emilia shared earlier, that the recruiter, the company, even the CEO, in my case, we had a passion for technology and education. And that's what hooked him, is seeing my past with that. And that was his as well. Right now, when you get all these things together, then you can determine what are your organizational musts. It is important that yes, you need a job, but you want a job that you want to invest in, right? And so Having this be your final piece on developing your brand statement, what you believe in for yourself moving forward and what you stand for, also needs to include what you hope from an organization that you're part of. When you put these together, it may be a little longer than one sentence, but it will help you develop that one sentence that you can post on LinkedIn. And then now this brand statement becomes an ultimate affirmation, if you will, of what you're looking for moving forward in your search. And just to echo and mirror what Amelia shared, when it comes to LinkedIn, which we all know and love and maybe not love some days, and we're on, we really just want to keep nurturing our profile to think about who are we trying to attract in our search and why. This goes back to your values. This goes back to your brand statement. What will keep anyone looking at your profile intrigued past 5 seconds? If we correlate it to badly formatted emails, people will delete an email in under 3 if they are not intrigued, engaged, or if it's badly formatted. So correlate that back to your LinkedIn profile. If 5 seconds is all it takes for them to click and scroll away from you, what 5 seconds and how would it matter moving forward? Is your message and your brand about you clear? Does it represent who you are professionally with a twist of who you are personally? And then what are you passionate about? Again, this just demonstrates that human connection quality that we also know and love. So with that, we know that was a lot in a little bit of time. But now we are moving into our fireside chat.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much, Millie and Annie. That was awesome. So I want to actually highlight a couple things that you all said. I love hearing a different perspective, or honestly, some similar perspectives on the job search. And it's really awesome to just see other leaders talk about this because we're all seeing so many things right now, especially the last like year and a half. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. I love some of the things you said about the AI tools. So I actually recently went to a recruiting like panel and we talked about AI and how the AI tools are being used for applicants. So I completely agree with you. Tailoring is key. So I love that point. I also love the AI prompt slide, right? A lot of people are going back into the market after so long. You have to constantly stay up to date with the technology. And I know we all kind of resist change, but it's so important. So I love that. The stat about the accountability partner, 95%, that's amazing. I hadn't heard of that stat before. So, I mean, I'm recently actually doing an accountability partner thing too, and I love it for results and continued motivations. That's amazing. And the sweet spot, I love that. So many great things. Socials. LinkedIn is so important. How many people that we have to talk to that just haven't touched their LinkedIn because they've been in a job for like 3, 4, 5, 10 years. So thank you for getting so specific on that. And Emilia, your quote, it will make it easier to help you. Yes, we tell people that all the time. Be specific. And I loved the core value statement, right? Because ultimately we want to work with people and companies that we love and have similar values to us with our synergy. So thank you so much. I know that resonated with me and my team, and I definitely think with people in the audience too. So I super appreciate all those points. So I did have some questions for you. So I wanted to start off with being like, my first question is, what are some of the biggest challenges people face when re-entering the job market after a break? So the key here is after a break.
I'll speak from an older person's perspective, and that is so some of my friends, lawyers, women in tech, even men that have taken a break to take care of their children or a parent who is ill, going back into the workplace, the idea of ageism has crept in inevitably. And in Silicon Valley, more than potentially other parts of the United States, but I've certainly felt it firsthand. And I will say that no matter where you are in your life, and I even actually held through Women in Revenue, a 2-part series on getting back in the workforce around ageism. And it's not just people over 40. It's actually two women in their 20s joined the session as well. And I was really surprised. I'm like, wait, in your 20s, why are you joining this? But okay, you're welcome to join us. And they said they felt like people were condescending towards them because they looked younger, maybe they didn't have as many years in the workplace. Everyone brings a different perspective to the workplace, and everyone deserves respect and to be heard. And so it's incredibly important if you're facing ageism or you've been out of the workplace, own your experience. So if you were on a board at a school, whatever volunteer work you did, maybe at the Humane Society, maybe it's a job in itself taking care of children or someone who's ill. Own it, leverage that, and apply. What did you learn through those skills that you can apply to the job that you're applying to? So just really owning whatever it is that you've just experienced for the X number of years. One of my friends, the lawyer, 10 years she was out of the workforce to focus on her children. We built her resume based on all the board work and volunteer work and the money she raised for the school our children attended. So lean into that is what I say as you're re-entering the workforce.
Great, thank you so much. By the way, this is a great time if anybody has any specific questions to start throwing them in the Q&A while we're doing the fireside chat. So I just wanted to kind of remind everyone. My next question is, it's for both of you. How has the job market evolved over the past decade, and what should job seekers be aware of when stepping back in?
Ooh, I can take a quick glance at that. I think I guess I'm the younger generation, as Amelia would say, even though we're not that far apart. But I think the biggest piece, especially, I transitioned out of the classroom in 2012, and that's when CS and SAS was just, I mean, it had been around a little bit, but it was just now on this upswing of need. And so even just that, the last 12 years has been incredibly crazy. So for this question, I think the biggest thing obviously is technology is enhanced so fast. You even just in the last year and a half, I mean, AI has been around for a while, but the last year and a half has changed the game, right? So for someone who's taken a break, just even looked at the last 10 years, even just been working, technology is enhanced so incredibly fast. Sometimes it's hard to catch up. And unfortunately, organizations, if they're not investing in their team to catch up with it, everyone's just trying to catch up themselves. And that's a lot. That's a lot of energy and hard things to tackle professionally and when you're searching for a job. And in turn, I've also seen the difference between certification and education. So 10 years ago, we could argue that going to college, getting a degree, going through a certificated program in an institution was definitely a path for many of our roles, right? But as technology enhanced, now technology is almost like a trade skill, if you will, where now certification has now taken an upswing. You don't necessarily need a degree for a lot of the jobs that we're doing today. And so there's been this shift on how we further educate ourselves to be better in our role. And we have it ongoing, between what Growth Molecules offers and so many other industries that have education certification to make you better in your role right now. Micro learning, workshops, in person coaching, like there's so many opportunities that for a while you could only get in some sort of collegiate or trade program. So it's really interesting for me in being in my field the last 10 years, that has definitely changed. There's so much at our fingertips now. It's almost impossible to say that you can't learn something new every day as you're trying to nurture yourself looking for a role.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I mean, there's so many different programs now, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months, that give you so much foundational knowledge that only like formal education programs didn't pass. So that's amazing.
Like
Um,
I used to look forward to a master's program, graduate school, because that's when your industry experience comes with your academic. You don't necessarily need to do that depending on the job that you're going for today.
Yeah.
So now you get that both worlds, and that's really fascinating. And I think that's where a lot of our adult learners and us growing in our professional career, that's where they really thrive. They want the experience with the education so that they could apply it instantly. And
Yeah.
that is definitely a benefit we didn't have a decade ago.
Yeah, that's a great point. I really like your positioning on that. I mean, it is, I mean, that gives you the edge that, back then you didn't really think about. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
In terms of strategies that can help someone identify and articulate their unique value after a career break, what would you say some of those strategies would be?
I'll go. Sure. I really think the strategies are practice. You need to practice owning your skills and interviewing because all too often people feel nervous. The imposter syndrome really sets in, and it's almost like they don't give themselves the benefit of their experience. They don't put it on the level that it deserves to have. And so practicing talking about yourself is incredibly important. I hate to bring up the gender thing, but it's alive and well and the differences. And so I'm hoping the children Annie and I are raising will be very different and confident. We both happen to have two daughters. It will be a different generation, but for our generation, my generation, it's very hard to talk about our experience, what we bring to the table. And so just really practicing that and owning it is incredibly important, I would say. And it doesn't hurt to wear your favorite clothes that you feel really confident in, whether you're on Zoom or in person. Wear clothes that make you feel confident going into that room and that you're going to crush it. I think that's really important. Also, on Zoom, practice being in the middle of the page, right? In the middle of the screen. All too often, I have people like this. I can barely see them, or they're so far back you can't see them. You need to be in the person's face and show them you're paying attention, you're engaged, you really want the job, and that you're showing up prepared. I think those are some of the top things that you can do, or strategies as you called them, Swati.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Amelia. The only thing I would add to that is I love the clothing tip. I don't think people think about that enough. Whether it's makeup or getting your hair done or yeah, clothing. I mean, it doesn't matter. I also love like power poses, right? I think
Mhm.
right before an interview or an important conversation. Yes, exactly. I think that it does actually help. Yeah, it does really help, even though it's silly. People think it's silly, but it really, really does help. So I love those strategies. Thank you for sharing. Um, how can job seekers leverage their existing network to uncover new opportunities, right? We all have a network. And as you both mentioned, and I've experienced as well, people are pretty shy when they need something from their network if they've never asked before. So would love to
Mhm.
understand like your thoughts on how job seekers can leverage their existing network to uncover new opportunities.
Yeah, I can start. So I think, first of all, and I even am guilty of this. In fact, Emilia is a great mentor because she'll call me out about it. Is that we especially as women, we don't necessarily strongly advocate for ourselves as much as we should, or how we talk to ourselves or to about ourselves to other people. I have a rap list that I can share, and I barely do, right? Because it's kind of odd for me to feel like, oh, yes, I did this and I did that, and Emilia will call me out on it if I don't say some of those things at the right moment in the right way. So I think the biggest or the hardest thing when you're trying to leverage your relationships is you have to reach out and you have to say, I'm looking for this position or an opportunity to do this again. Can you help? Or even don't be afraid to say, where can you see me fit in your organization if there was a role open? I mean, they have a relationship with you because professionally they've seen you do something or you've impacted their life or you've been part of their team. They're a former leader. And so there's already that connection made. You've already done the hard work. So now it's, hey, you've worked with me. You know how I am. You know where my skills and challenges are. Is there a role that could fit where I could join your team again? Or is there somewhere you'd recommend that I take a look? The hardest part about that though is asking. It has nothing to do with who you're asking, but it's the fact that you are. And I also think that with the connections that you have, reaching out about community events or webinars like this, or don't be afraid to reach out and say, I really, what you said to me today really inspired me. Amelia and I love those, so feel free to connect to us. But taking that step, it's almost like dating. You just have to do it. And those relationships are already there. The hard work is done. So if you just put that aside and just continue leveraging that, then you're going to find something that's meant for you along the way because they're already in your professional community in support of you. So the first step is ask, just flat out ask. Amelia?
Yeah, I see also a question that I'm happy to answer as well, but I will say show up prepared and preface why you're reaching out to someone. Let them know I would like 15 minutes of your time and here's why. Or ask your network who would be a good resource for me to talk to. I've had CCOs introduced to me through my network. And because that person has been a client of ours, or I've known this person from a previous career position, of course, I'm going to take the call. I tell them, hey, I actually charge for my time hourly, but I'm happy to give you 15 minutes of my time. Make sure you come prepared, right? Come prepared. And I think it's really important that you thank the person afterwards. Let them know where you've landed with your career. Follow up with them. I'm genuinely interested in everyone I talk to. I want to know, where are they going? What are they going to do with this information? Send me your new LinkedIn profile. I want to see the changes you made. For me, that's gratifying to know that I was able to help someone, whether it's land a job, have a more confident LinkedIn profile, crush an interview. Those are the kind of things you want to follow up on and let people know, like let people celebrate your wins. I think it's incredibly important as part of the process of overcoming your shyness. Celebrate you.
Yeah, these are amazing tips. We're obviously getting some engagement in chat, and I absolutely love them. And I think I love how direct and specific these tips are. I think that that's what people need, and that's how people need to communicate. And it's not always about, to your point, like, yes, to some people asking directly, but if you want to start off with just being like, hey, I loved your webinar, or I love to reconnect. We haven't worked together in 5 years. Just opening the doors, I think, are amazing. So I love this. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to go through. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to those in a second. So if anyone has more questions, now is the time to put them in there. So, how can AI tools benefit someone re-entering the job market, and how can they get started using them? So I know you gave some tips, but do you have like, hey, here's some beginner tools, or here's like the first one or two I would recommend for people that are re-entering?
I mean, I think you have to start with Canva and ChatGPT. Start playing with it. Also, if you have a paid Grammarly account, put your ChatGPT outputs in there. Check for plagiarism. ChatGPT is to help you get started, but then you need to turn it into your own voice. I think it's incredibly important. People know what's AI generated. You have to put your special touch on it and make it your voice. I would say start with those two things, and then finding someone. I know this isn't a technology, but finding an accountability buddy, like Annie mentioned, is really, really important. I mean, as a founder of a company, I have advisors, I have mentors, I have people that I continuously work with to hold me accountable to the goals I've set forth. So don't
Mhm.
be afraid of that. Annie, do you have
Yeah.
more?
Yeah, I think because those tools again, we can't forget essentials, foundational skills or tools are still foundational in skill building for a reason. So I definitely echo what Amelia shared. In terms of those of you who have already been using some of those, then moving to the next phase would be like interviewing AI tools like interview.io would be a good one, where it's walking you through an interview process based on the prompts and input that you're putting on, and giving yourself that space or place just to take it to the next level if you don't have a mentor or coach, right? Because I will say that role playing with someone on the other side is definitely to be more beneficial than, let's say, a computer, right? Again, it's a supplemental tool, it does not replace what's actually going to happen. But expanding beyond in those interview tools is going to be helpful as well.
Thank you both. I love that. I'm just going to add, I know this is not a tool or technology, but mirrors. Mirrors are amazing. I know it's so old school, but I still to this day practice in front of the mirror if I need to for something, because when you go back and you see your hand gestures, verbal, nonverbal behavior, eye contact, you learn so much about yourself, and that these AI tools would just enhance, I feel.
Swati, I
Oh,
just
and oh,
Ooh, I
go
got
for it.
both of you
We both had
talking.
like a little epiphany. Go
uh-huh.
for it, Emilia.
Yeah, I just wanted to add Tony Shea, because we were talking about him earlier. If you've never read Delivering Happiness, highly recommend it. He wrote the book about his Amazon or experience building Zappos, and he had everyone in the support center, because I was their CSM. I flew there every year. He had everyone with a mirror in front of their computer or on the side, so they could see themselves talking to that person on the other side. And so seeing a smile on someone's face brings positive energy to the table. So I love that idea, practicing in front of a mirror and then having a mirror there to remind yourself, smile, you're talking to someone about something you're excited about. Let go of the nervousness.
That's amazing. Thank you. Annie, were you gonna add something before we get to the question?
I was gonna say, leveraging videos like this, so being able to like record yourself and watch it back is really humbling. Even for us who do it probably every day, all
Mhm.
three of us. But also too, think about this. If you do it with someone you're more vulnerable with, like father-in-law, husband, best friend, mother, that is the worst you're ever going to feel. An interview will be so much easier. So just if that helps, do it with someone like that, because you're going to be a little bit more nervous. You're going to be a little bit more, you want to prove yourself, and you're more vulnerable with someone like that. But the HR recruiter or another leader, it's not going to be to that exact level. So if you want to really practice yourself there, that's a good way to do it.
That's a great point. I love that. Thank you both. And then video is technology, so that's like another little tech insert. So, okay, so we have three questions. I think we can get to all three of them. So we're gonna start with, if you struggle with interviewing, is there a certain program or practice method, perhaps with a mentor, that you would recommend?
I mean, we're biased. We offer coaching. You can just go to the website and book any of the 6 coaches we have online, and it's very anonymous and structured. Um, I would also add, if you don't want to spend the money or can't spend, afford it, I would say leaning on people you trust and building an accountability plan together and practicing. I think those are just like small ways to get started and have a big impact quickly.
Fantastic. Next question. What are your thoughts on recommendations on LinkedIn? Do they make a difference? So I know we talked about recommendations, but this person specifically asking about recommendations on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Well, I'll take a stab at this. So there's two reasons why I think you should. I mean, there's many, but two primary for our time today. One would be, if anything, it benefits you. Because when you need recommendations, when you need references, when you need to go back to all of your professional history for the time you decide to change jobs, it's going to be so much more work to try to get those numbers, get those people's names, find out where they are, right? So just for pure selfishness, you building your profile and getting those recommendations from people on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has a resume printout. You now have a system of record, right, of people who referred you at one point. So selfishly, it's just good housekeeping for you professionally. One of the exercise tips we put in the chat earlier is, just on your own, you should have a running all career about, AKA Annie Doc, that is just a running record of everything you've done, because it's impossible for you to remember it unless you put it somewhere. And the same thing is for recommendations. No longer do we ask for an email on letterhead. LinkedIn is the best way, right? So number one, you need it. Number two, as a leader, I still to this day will give recommendations. I will also ask for them from customers. If we had interactions that were positive, impactful, and it demonstrated my skills or ability, again, that goes back to this humbleness factor. I have to advocate and ask, because if I don't ask, I will never know. So they're definitely seen. LinkedIn is definitely seen by recruiters. So I would definitely advocate, go for it for those reasons, and sure, many more.
Great, thank you. And then last question, as it relates to each of them, do you think the email domain someone uses is important? Yahoo versus Gmail? Ooh, that's a really interesting question.
I mean, I have both of them. I will be honest, I use Gmail. Yahoo is like from my college days. And I can't, I mean, even just when I see Hotmail, I can't help but kind of cringe, but it is what it is. I try not to pass judgment. I think
Mhm.
you should use what you're comfortable with, and again, own it. Just like the people who have chosen to let their hair go white, and I hear the snide remarks from people saying, how could she looks so old. Who cares? It's none of your business. If they feel confident that way, let them be that way. That's
Mhm.
my idea on email.
Yeah, I would also add too, if that's already a criteria at which they're critiquing you and they haven't even looked past that, then you don't want to work for them anyway, and they don't align with your core values. It's
I
unfortunate, but if that's
100%.
already happening over an email domain, then you can move on and you could feel pretty confident that you'd be somewhere longer and better.
I absolutely love those answers. The only thing I would say is that with Gmail, like new technology, new tools, some things are just easier to use. So I would
Totally.
recommend exploring them in case they might be easier to use, but completely on board with what Amelia and Anne said. That was the best answer to that question. So thank you so much, you two, Annie and Amelia, for your time today. This was incredibly insightful. I loved your perspective. I know you've helped so many. This is being recorded, and we had some questions in the chat, and will be posted next week on our YouTube channel, and we will send it to all of you. So feel free to share this with your network, anyone you think is looking or needs some tips that is trying to get back into the market. We have our next one in November, so watch out for that announcement as well. And I want to once again thank Annie and Amelia for this amazing presentation and for being very specific to our audience and giving very practical tips that they can use today. So thank you so, so much. We will get this out as soon as we can, and we really appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.